Today is October 21st, 2021, and I'm Gabriele Fellows with the Museums of Lake County, and this is an oral history interview with Fred Veio. Fred, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
First of all, how do you spell your name?
Fredricknallveio. Frederick Nall Veio.
And what can you tell us about your name? Were you named after anyone?
Well, my middle name, Nall, that's my mother's maiden name. My last name is a little difficult. It's French. My ancestors came from Alsace-Lorraine in France, came to Canada, and the name then was something like V-A-U-L-T or V-E-A-U. The vowels caused some confusion, so they simplified it to V-E-I-O.
Oh, okay. And what is your date of birth and how old are you?
July 24th, 1930. I presently now am 91 years old.
Where were you born?
I was born in Oakland, California.
What were your parents' names?
My father's name was Jerome F. Veio, and my mother's name was Cornelia Winifred Veio.
Do you have any siblings?
No, I never got married.
Do you have brothers or sisters?
I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters.
What are their names?
Jerry, I'm next with Frederick, then there's Elaine, and then Gloria, Carol, and Daniel.
And where were you raised?
I was raised mostly in Oakland.
What neighborhood?
This is the central area of Oakland.
What did your father do for a living?
My father was in the Navy for 5.5 years, and then he got out. He became a salesman, worked for different department stores, and ended up working for Susan Roebuck for many, many years.
Oh, okay. Did he enjoy his job?
Yes, he was involved with decoration, drapes and things like that.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, people come in and would like to fix up their living room, and he would show them curtains, different kinds of upholstery, tabletops, things like that.
What did your mother do for a living?
My mother was a home care keeper.
Do you know how your parents met?
No, I don't. I think they met casually at my mother's residence, and they became involved, and they married. She was relatively young, about 17 or 18, something like that.
Did you have a best friend as a kid?
Well, as a kid, I did, but I forget his name just offhand. But in high school, I had a good friend, Carl Rodolph. We were buddies for many years.
And what did you like about him? What did you have in common?
Well, we had similar attitudes about things. We both went to Piedmont High School, and we didn't go through the kindergarten procedure up to high school. We went to different schools outside of high school, and we moved into the area in due time, and are not originally of the area at all. So we had a little tough time trying to mix in with some of the kids.
Did you have a group of friends that you hung out with?
Yes, I did.
Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, they're mostly in the grade below me. I was one step above the others. My interests varied. I was in the gymnastics, and they got involved in that with me. Some of the kids in my own classroom, they lived somewhat apart from me. It was not convenient to go visit them.
Oh, I see. Did you have any hobbies as a child?
I had astronomy as a hobby.
Oh, oh, what was your favorite subject in school?
Well, biology, science.
What did you like about science?
Well, dinosaurs and things like that, flying reptiles. It was hard to believe millions of years ago these things existed. So the time concept was something to get used to.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Piedmont High School for 5.5 years. I graduated in January of 1949.
Were you involved in any school activities?
No, not too much. I was in the Argyle Boys Club. I was on the stage crew. I was in band and orchestra for many years. I played the flute.
Oh, what was it like to play the flute?
Oh, it was fun. I was called a sissy because I was a male playing the flute. One guy called me a sissy, and I got up and I went back and talked to him. I says, "You keep your mouth shut, or I'll shove your clarinet down your throat."
Did you go to college, and if so, where'd you go?
Well, after I graduated Piedmont in January of 1949, I went directly into University of California. I had the qualifications. I went there for 2 years, and then I got out and I joined the Army for 2 years, and was in the Army for 2 years from 51 to 53. I'm a veteran of the foreign war in Korea. I was a medic at the time.
What did you learn from being in the service?
Well, there's a lot of I was kind of naive when I went in, but I learned you judge people by how they act, not how they talk. And there's a lot of that going on. People promise this and that, but they never followed up. And the communists, they promised this and promised that, and they never kept their word. They just shoot people all the time. It's a cold, hard lesson to learn.
What was your major in college?
Well, after I got out of the Army, I went back to the University of California for about 4 years. I majored in bacteriology. I graduated in 57 with a BA degree in bacteriology.
Tell me about your college days. Any interesting stories?
Well, no, I didn't do. My father, he had 6 kids, and it wasn't easy to raise 6 kids. So I had a GI Bill. I gave him almost all my GI Bill when I was going to college to help him out. Then when I got out, got working, I still gave him money. So I didn't chase the ladies very much. But I did go to dances over in San Francisco, and met some good dancers. The female are usually the better dancers, and so that's about the limit.
Did you have a good girlfriend that you remember during those times?
I had no. I didn't have the money or the time for courting any girl.
What was your first job after college?
I worked at Cutter Laboratory in Berkeley, California. I was a bacteriologist. I helped culture vaccines for animals. Animals have various kinds of diseases, and the farmers, they want to protect their cattle as much as possible so that they're good for sale. I did that for about 1 year.
What jobs did you have after that?
Well, I happened to get a job at the University of California as a lab tech in the public health building. And it's technical. I don't want to talk about it too much.
What other jobs did you have?
Well, after that, my dad needed some help in his vending machine business, so I became his partner and his mechanic. He was up in years and carrying the hot food and other kinds of canned goods into the various locations. It was trying on him, so I did most of that for him, and it probably saved his life for all I know. We did that for many years. Then my dad retired in 1973, and I was living up in Lake County at the time, and I did something different.
What'd you do different?
Well, we moved up in Lake County in 1968, and I wasn't feeling very good. So for a few years, I just rested up, and then I tried to start an optical business, a small optical business, making optics for specialized telescopes. And I quit that after a while because my health wasn't that good anymore. I just stopped completely. Thereafter, I did handyman jobs. I worked in the repair sheds. I did IHSS provider work, things like that.
Have you ever been married?
Never been married. Not bachelor, just circumstances.
And when did you move to Lake County?
1968, April of 1968.
When did your dad purchase this property?
He bought it in 1925. Well, firstly, he was a young man, and he joined the United States Navy in December of 1917. He had 6 months training up at the Great Lakes. Then he got his foreign duty on supply ships to France. When the war ended in November of 1918, and then he was able to discharge from the Navy. But he decided to take on foreign duty, which is something he was very much interested in. Foreign duty is going to the Mediterranean, different seaports. He was on destroyer duty, in other words. And he did that for about 3.5, 4 years. He had a high school education, so he qualified to be a quartermaster for the ship. He was first-class quartermaster after a while. Then he got out in the Navy in about 1923, and then 2 years later, he threw an advertisement in the San Francisco Chronicle. He read about lots for sale up in Lake County, so he came up to Lake County, and the roads were lousy and all that kind of stuff, and he purchased this lot as of now, and it cost about $535. That was a small fortune in those days, so he made payments. After several years, he had it all paid off.
So talk a little more about his Navy career. Did anything interesting happen to him?
Well, the main thing that is of interest of him is when the war ended in November of 1918. He was discharged from supply ship duty, and he got transferred, I think, to Philadelphia. And he knew there was going to be a foreign duty, and he knew he would get assigned to destroyers. They had the USS Biddle 151. It was just launched. It was a brand new destroyer. And they were assigned duty to the Azores. The United States Navy had 4 very large seaplanes made for submarines, searching out submarines. But the war ended, so they didn't have a military use for them anymore. So they decided to try to fly across the Atlantic Ocean and be the first in the world to do so. So there were 3 planes left, 3 past Newfoundland, about the 19th of May. They started at dusk and they flew at nighttime. And along the way between Newfoundland and the Azores, there were destroyers about 50 miles spaced apart, and they had searchlights up in the air so that these pilots could have some kind of true navigation. And then in the morning, they were near the Azores, but it was foggy, and they didn't know where they were at. So 2 of them landed on the ocean, and the third one landed in Horta. That's one of the islands of the Azores. So the one of the 2 on the sea sank eventually, and the other one, by its own power, it couldn't take off, but by its own power, it could get to Ponta Delgada, another large island of the Azores. And the significance of what he did was his destroyer pulled in on May 19th at 6 a.m. And the NC3, the one that was damaged but still could float, it came in at 3 p.m. and one of the wings was shattered. My dad asked the captain if he could go over and look at the NC3 with a couple of buddies. The captain approved. They went over there on this floating dock and observed the NC3. One of the guys held to the damaged wing strut of one of the bottom wing. Part of the wingtip broke off in his hands. It was about 3 feet long, so they broke it up in 3 pieces. Each kept a piece. They went back to the destroyer and they kept their mouth shut. So when my dad got out of the Navy, he had a rare relic of World War I. My father kept this strut and didn't tell anybody. It came from the NC-3 seaplane of the Navy from May 20th, 1920 time. This wing strut is just wood. I think I forget what they call it, cedar, I think. It's wrappings, cloth wrappings, glue. This thing right here in my hand weighs 2 ounces, but it's strong. The wing in the NC-3 plane has a wingspan of 126 feet. There is some metal reinforcement here and there, but basically it's a wood frame with cloth and shellac to tighten up the fabric. The plane could lift up the seaplane very easily, but the speed was not very great. It was about 85 miles an hour. There are 4 engines on this seaplane. Each one was about 500 horsepower. What else? Anyway, I donated this strut to the museum several years ago, and just recently they want to talk about it a little bit more. It's history. It's unusual history.
Talk about your hobby, astronomy. How did you get into it?
I had an interest in astronomy when I was young. When I was about 16, I decided to go to a judo school nearby to learn something about judo and self-defense. I was short. Most of my classmates were 2 or 3 inches taller than me. And I felt it'd give me an advantage. Anyway, the professor in charge of the judo school, his name was Professor Ray Law. He bought a 10-inch Newtonian telescope, but he didn't know how to set it up. He didn't know how to find anything with it. And with a sky map, I was able to figure that out. I also bought a sky atlas showing all the planets, globular clusters, and everything in it. That was a big aid. He had a finder scope on his telescope, and with the finder scope and my sky map, I can find galaxies. I can find all kinds of things for him. So it was a mutual benefit. I didn't have a telescope or the money for same. Anyway, I decided to build a star camera, or astrograph is the correct term, and I started it while I was going to college, but I never finished it. And then when I went into the Army for 2 years, I got out, and then I have a friend, Gail Gregory. His father was in World War II, and he had a large aerial lens. It was f/4.5 and 310 millimeters. That's about 12 inches. And he had this lens, and I liked it very much. And I agreed to work for him for 100 hours around his house at $1 an hour to make an exchange for the aerial lens. I got the lens, and I made a mount for it. It took time to build it because I didn't have any plans, I didn't have any experience, and I had practically no tools whatsoever. But I eventually got it built, and I got it published in Sky and Telescope in 1957. But I wanted to photograph the Milky Way, but I lived in Oakland, or Piedmont, to be more precise. The sky wasn't what you call too good for photography of the Milky Way. So I was frustrated, I was flustered, so I decided to try out another project. I picked the Spectra Helioscope. That's a special sun telescope to look at the sun in H alpha and all other wavelengths. There's practically nothing in the way of plans or information on the subject. One book, Amateur Telescope Making Volume 1 by Ingalls, it has a chapter in there by Dr. Hale on the Spectra Helioscope. Otherwise, there's practically nothing. So anyway, a professional Spectra Helioscope takes up a lot of space and costs money. And I decided to do something different. I decided to make a half scale and cut the cost down to nothing by using a lot of wood and nails and things like that. I started in, let's see, when did I start now? 1962 is when my interest was peaked. I started the construction in 1964 and I finished it 1 year later. I rebuilt it in 1965. And then I had it published in Sky and Telescope magazine in January of 1969. Many people wrote letters to me. They were interested in the sun, but they couldn't afford a professional-sized instrument. So I wrote to a lot of people at first for about 30 years. I wrote a book. This is the 4th edition right here. It's 84 pages. It didn't cost very much because it's private publication. Anyway, I gave away about half of them, but the main thing is I was trying to plant seeds for other people to pick up from where I'm going to leave off in life. Let's see. Anyway, then the internet came along in the year 2000, and that really helped out enormously. I had a website on a friend's I had a site on a friend's website, and they wrote to me, and we wrote back and forth for many years. So I got a bunch of people interested in building Spectra helioscopes. I've had articles published in English, mostly English, French, German, Italian, Japanese. Those people did the translation of the information. So now Spectra helioscopes are made by a few people scattered throughout the world. United States mostly, France are doing great. Down in Brazil, Japan, Hong Kong, England, Italy, and a few other places. I didn't make any money off of it. It was just a thing to do. I been doing it for about the last 53 years, and I'm kind of tired. I'm just worn out. I'm not doing very much now. But anyway, this book here is epitomizes what I'm trying to do.
Why did you want to build a Spectra helioscope?
I wanted something different. I originally was interested in the Milky Way, but the sky conditions weren't too good. So I decided to build something different. I decided to build a compromised Spectra helioscope. It wasn't easy to do. It was I had no plans. I had no experience making optics. It was just a bunch of issues that had to be solved one by one. Took me about 1 year to make the instrument. It wasn't perfect. I had to rebuild it later, and that was in 1965. And then I observed with it for about a year, and then I stopped observing with it, and I moved up to Lake County in 1968. But I still continued my writing letters, and when the internet came along in 2000, I had a whole pile of emails going on all the time.
Talk about your monster instrument, the solar spectroscope.
Well, my first design was a basic design. The telescope focal length was 9 feet. The spectroscope focal length was 6 feet. Now, the monster instrument, it was just to see if there's any problems building something big. The telescope is a 6-inch mirror. It's 15 feet focal length. With a Barlow, it goes to 36 equivalent feet. The spectroscope was about 15-foot focal length, the 2 concave mirrors, the Hale design, and what it was basically a very powerful solar spectroscope. And it was a real thrill. I was able to see this the solar spectrum in very fine detail. I can go to high orders and get the equivalent of 0.1 angstrom linear dispersion coming into my eye. That's what the big guys are doing. And my overall cost was about $3,000. Professional instruments, they have the lot, the building, the big optics and big this and big that. You're talking about millions of dollars.
What is the Zeeman effect?
The Zeeman effect is two lines. It's one line that's split by the magnetic field of the star or the sunspot on the sun being studied. The amateurs had never done anything like that before, and I'm the first one to start that process. I got the tip from a Dr. Leinbach of NOSA in Colorado. He told me it was possible. He had a professional Spectra Helioscope, and he was doing it. So I figured, well, maybe I can do it too. And it took some fiddling here and there. But my friend Leonard Higgins, he made a Spectra Helioscope, and so we used his instrument to find the Zeeman effect first time by amateurs.
You visited the Mount Wilson Observatory in 1981.
Last night I visited I took down the parts for a Spectra Helioscope I built for a guy in Malibu. And I visited Mount Wilson, and I was able to get inside. I told them I made Spectra Helioscopes. They let me in, and they gave me a tour of Mount Wilson telescopes. And they got me inside the 150-foot solar tower solar spectroscope. I got in the observing room, and the tour guide, he showed me how the Zeeman effect works.
So are you working on any projects now?
No, I'm tired.
That makes sense.
Well, I don't make any money off it. I give information. I'm trying to help people out. And all this giving, free time, is for the birds, as far as I'm concerned. And so I just, well, also I'm tired. I'm 91 years old. I don't do too much anymore.
What would you describe as the best day of your life?
Well, one of the most thrilling days of my life was when I finished my first compact Spectra Helioscope. I had it working right. I looked at the sun in H-alpha light, and the instrument worked beautifully. I saw very faint plots. I saw flares, filaments, all kinds of stuff for practically nothing. If I had an H-alpha filter built by some of these companies, you're talking about thousands of dollars.
What are you the most proud of?
Well, what makes me most happy is after pushing Spectra Helioscopes for about 50 years, there are now in the world various individuals have a Spectra Helioscope compromise design, compact designs, and they're doing this all because I stirred them up. In other words, they had the ability, they just needed somebody to stir them up, giving some basic information, which I did do. That's my main thrill.
Is there anything else you want to share?
Well, I've done comets. When I made my star camera or astrograph, I photographed comets and some other things, and that was a real thrill too.
Perfect.
Now, recently, Jeffrey Cartwright, he lives in Clear Lake Park. He has a Canon camera and an f1.8 lens of 85 millimeter focal length. He didn't know how to use it to photograph the Milky Way, but I did. I told him use my rigid tripod, make it at a certain setting, and then take 3-second exposures, 150 images at the ISO of 50,000, and he got a beautiful shots of the Milky Way. Then he stacked all the images, and he was happy as hell. He didn't think that was possible. That's the new way to do it. The new way to do it is electronically. My way, the old way, I froze to death that nighttime when I was taking pictures.
What wishes and hopes and dreams do you have for the future?
At my age, Although I never got married, there's things that happen in my life. Some of it's very personal. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to be left alone in my old age. I have prostate cancer now. I'll live another couple years. In the meantime, I just want to relax and be left alone.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.